what will happen after pollination. Now you understood what is pollination and also the types of pollination. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from the stamen to the stigma of the flower. Stigma is the female part of the flower. Okay. So once the pollen grains falls on the stigma, so pollen grain looks somewhat it is yellowish and it has like this kind of structure. Once it falls on the stigma, it will absorb water as well as nutrients. It will absorb the water and it will also absorb the nutrients from the stigma, and it will develop a pollen tube. It will develop a pollen tube. A tube-like structure called pollen tube. The pollen tube will be carrying the male gamete. It will be carrying the male gamete. It will be carrying two male gamete or two sperm. Two male gamete or two sperm it will be carrying. So it will reach the ovule. Okay, it will reach the ovary. Then it will enter the ovule and it will fuse with the female gamete. And after the fusion, what will happen? It will be fertilized. It will be fertilized, right? So many pollen grain will fall on it. Okay, and whichever will produce the pollen tube faster, it will carry the male gamete, and on reaching the ovary, it will enter the ovule. Inside the ovule, the female germ cell or female gamete cells will be there, and the male gamete one will fuse with the female gamete, and that will result in the formation of a zygote. That is, the fertilization process takes place. And there is one more gamete is there. No, that will fuse with here. There is one more cell is present that it will fuse with that. It is called polar nuclei. It will reach that and it will fuse with it. That will help in the formation of endosperm. You know, in the seed it will form, the nutritive food is formed, right? That nutritive food which is formed is called endosperm. So once the male and female gametes fuse, that means fertilization is over. After fertilization, what is next, right? So that we learn. This diagram is very important. This diagram is asked several times. Okay, so maybe for 2 marks, 3 marks they will be asking. So practice this diagram. So here you have to draw the female part, that is the carpel. Okay, so you have to show the stigma, the style and ovary, and the ovule. Inside the ovule, you have to show these cells. So here 3, here 2 and 3 gametes, female gamete, and the pollen tube carrying the male gamete. Okay, so that's about the germination of pollen on stigma. Now let us see what will happen after fertilization. After fertilization. So what is fertilization? You know, it's a fusion of male and female gametes which will result in the formation of zygote. So what is zygote? It's a fertilized egg, right? Fertilized egg. So what happens after fertilization? After fertilization, the zygote will continue to divide. See, now this the male gamete has the haploid number of chromosome, and the female gamete also has the haploid number of chromosome, and it will fuse and it becomes the diploid cell. That diploid cell is called zygote. Then now the zygote will continue to divide. It undergoes mitotic cell division. So it will divide several times and it forms the embryo. It forms the embryo, and all this happens inside the ovule. Later on, gradually the ovule will develop a tough coat which is called the seed. Okay, later on the seed will be covered. The ovule part will be covered. It will convert into seed coat, right? That's how the seed coat is formed. So that is how seed is formed. Then what happens to the ovary? The ovary will grow rapidly. After fertilization, it will grow rapidly and it will ripen to form a fruit. Okay, so the ovary can convert it to very dry fruit, or it may form a fleshy fruit. Fleshy fruit means it may form apple, tomato, mango, and dry fruit means the wheat, paddy, ragi. All these are the dry fruit. So this is what happens after fertilization, and the sepals, petals, everything will drop. It will fall off. Okay, and that's what happens after fertilization. After fertilization, this is how the seed will form. And The seeds, I told you, it will be of two types. Maybe one is dry, other one is fleshy. Dry one, which is nothing but the cereals, and cereals are this paddy, wheat, ragi, everything. And the fleshy part, you know, that is mango, apple. Now, what happens to the seeds, right? So seeds contain the future plant, isn't it, right? So it will have the embryo which will later develop into the seedling, right? The embryo which will develop into seedling under appropriate condition. This is called germination, right? So you know very well, the seed contain the future plant. See, if at all you have checked the what is that, beans, everything. So you know the seeds of the beans, the kidney beans, or the pea plant, right? The peas, right? So chickpea, all those things, you can get the two halves. You can get the two halves. These two halves we call it cotyledon. We call this two halves. These two halves are called the cotyledon, or it is called the seed leaves. It is called cotyledon, or it is also called seed leaves. So what does the seed contain? The seed contain the future plant, right? The future plant. Okay. So this is the growing seedling. It is the growing seedling, and you know very well the shoot part, right? It will have that baby shoot part and baby root. The baby shoot is called plumule. The baby shoot is called plumule, and the baby root is called radicle. So you should remember this. They have asked this. So this is in case of dicotyledon. In case of monocotyledon, you know it will have only one single seed leaf. It will have. Okay. So it will have a single seed leaf. So again, the cotyledon will help in nourishing the growing embryo and seedling, and it will contain, as we know, it has that growing plant, that is future plant, the baby shoot and baby root. The baby shoot is called plumule and baby root is called radicle. This they have asked several times. The baby shoot, the stem part, and baby root. Okay, baby root is radical. So I hope you have understood about what happens after pollination. So pollination we have learned, and types of pollination also we learned. The difference also we know now. After pollination, what happens? There is germination of the pollen tube and reaching the ovule, and it will undergo fertilization. After fertilization, what are the changes, right? The ovule will become the seed and the ovary will become the fruit. Then the seed contains the baby plant or the future plant, the embryo, and this cotyledon will give the nourishment, and the baby plant or the baby seedling will have, you can identify the two parts, the shoot system and the root system. The shoot system is called plumule and the root system is called radicle. So with that we have finished with the sexual reproduction in higher plants, that is flowering plants. Next with the sexual reproduction in human beings.